Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome back to the Day One Podcast. I am Adam Daly, and I'm excited to bring you another episode today of our show. Thank you for your patience. I know I have requests of having more consistent release schedule for this show, but man, life just gets in the way sometimes. But we've got an exciting update to talk about today, and I've also got a guest on with me from Oregon. Dylan is here to talk about shortcuts. Hi, Dylan.
Hello.
Thanks for being on the show today. I'm excited to dive into some stuff, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. I wanted to talk about some update stuff on the app first, beginning with version 6.0, both released on iOS and Mac pretty much at the exact same time. And here are some notable things that you'll want to watch out for. One, text messaging entries was just released with version 6.0. Now, this is starting in the United States only right now, but the team is working hard at looking into how this is going to work internationally. It's a great way to have reminders sent to your text messages and then a quick reply in the text, and an entry is created in day one. It's a fantastic update. For premium subscribers, they get 500 messages per year on the annual renewal, and then additional messages can be purchased via in-app purchase. And this is all related to how it costs on the back end. So we wanted to try and keep that low and not increase the subscription price, and so that's why we're offering it this way. Another really wonderful update that I'm excited about. It's really beautiful to see. The calendar view, now you can include photos on the date cells. A really great way to scroll back through the calendar view and see a quick look at some of your entries you've created with media. And you can turn this on or off if you want in the appearance settings. But one cool thing you can do now is favorite photos in your entries. So if you've got entries with multiple photos, tap on a photo and then tap the heart icon to favorite it, and that will be the one that shows up in the calendar cell. Really beautiful view to review your entries. And another one, this has been a long time coming. I know that we've had many users request this feature, but entry merging is now available on iOS and Mac. Basically, you use the multi-select tool on iOS or command and select entries on Mac, and there is an option now to merge multiple entries into a single one. So if you're like me sometimes where you're creating multiple entries throughout the day through various ways and you want to make them just one big combined entry, use that tool. It will use the metadata from the earliest entry, but then combine all the other content into one. It's a really fantastic feature. We have new content and formatting menus in iOS as well. This has improved performance in the app a lot because we're using the iOS services that they provide that really improve the performance rather than replacing the entire keyboard to do that. All your favorites or some common used ones are in the beginning, and then additional ones you can tap more to get additional options. Rotating pictures is now available. There's a new date picker that uses the Apple iOS layout that is just beautiful. Default journal templates. I know this was also a big feature request we've had, so basically what you can do is go into the journal settings and choose a default template. So if you're using templates frequently, set this up so anytime you create a new entry in that journal, the template will just load in there automatically. No need to add it another way or add it later into the entry. It's just automatic. Very cool thing. In addition to the 6.0, because that was a big update that just came out, we have been working on it for a few months. 6.1 was recently released, and this also has some great things. One, journal sort order. Now you can sort your entries by date chronologically or by edit. So you can do that in the journal preferences. Now we have a setting for all day entries, so they don't have a specific time. You can set that in the date picker. Templates now have the option to select a media preference right at the launch. So, for example, if you're using templates frequently and you want to add a photo right away or open the camera, set this up in the template, advanced settings, and when you launch that template, it'll automatically go to that media selection. So if you want it to launch the front or back camera, it will automatically go there, take your photo. When you hit save, it loads it into your template and your entry. It is a fantastic feature. Very excited about that one. And another big one is audio recording with transcription has now been extended up to 10 minutes. So now you can record yourself for 10 minutes and have all of that audio transcribed. Fantastic updates in 6.0 and 6.1. I do want to mention big stuff coming for Android. We are still working on that. It has, I know people have been asking for updates there. One of the big ones that we're working on right now is end-to-end encryption on Android. And that will open up many doors to keep making that app or keep improving it as we go. So that's the next step for Android. And once that's done, we're just gonna keep going. Very excited about the updates that are coming out. Stay tuned. This is we had a roadmap plan recently with the team, and we're just really excited about what's coming up next for day one. All right, that's all I have. I mean, I know that's a lot. Take a look at our help guides at help.dayoneapp.com. We have release notes for iOS and Mac and Android, so check those out for any updates that you may have missed on the app stores. Okay, yeah. Now I just want to get down to brass tacks here and talk with Dylan about some great stuff. He emailed me a couple of months ago and shared with me this idea that he had built some shortcuts to help his younger children do journaling. And I was really blown away by this, and we chatted back and forth a couple of times. So I wanted to have him on the show and talk about this as kind of a beginning of sharing journal templates with the Day One community, because I know that's been something that's talked about on the Facebook community, where a place where users can come together and share their different shortcuts that they've built. And so I think this is a great launching off part, and we'll talk to Dylan about that. Dylan, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about all of this. And about me, there's a lot of ways I could go with this. I think probably the biggest thing is that I'm a big nerd. I like to play video games a lot. And fortunately, so do my kids. So in our free time, we do that when it's not amazingly beautiful outside, because living in Oregon, when the weather's nice, you take advantage of it.
Exactly, yes. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you, what platforms do you play video games on mostly?
Everything,
Okay.
but like my go-to is the PlayStation family.
All right.
So I got a PS5 sitting next to me, but lately I've been playing a lot of PlayStation Vita because the stores were going to be closed and now they're not. But anyway, yeah. I've been doing that a lot.
Doing a lot of Switch at my house. A lot of Switch gaming with the younger kids. Animal Farm, is that what it's called? Not an
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing. I don't even know. Mario Kart and all of those fun games on the Switch. Nintendo, send me free stuff. Just kidding. Because that's an ad, right? Doesn't that count? I'm just kidding.
I wish.
All right. When did you first start using Day One?
I just looked at this the other day. My oldest entry is from like February of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you journaling at all before then?
Not really. I think you could probably look at that date and correlate it with some podcasts I listened to that were talking about journals and yearly themes.
Yeah.
And I really liked the idea of that. The podcast I'm particularly referring to likes to do paper.
Right.
And they have a journal that they sell for that theme system. But my handwriting's terrible. Paper is slow. I just don't like it. So I knew of Day One from like years back. I'm a pretty heavily invested in the Apple ecosystem.
Okay.
And at the time, like years and years and years ago, when Day One was very new, I was like, "What's the deal? It's like a glorified notes app. I've got notes right here. It's free." And as I've grown older and less willing to work up concoctions of personalizations and technical stuff, I was like, oh, the value here is clearly something different. I didn't get it then.
Yeah.
So when looking for a journal system, Day One was the clearly best way to go.
Awesome. That's great feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
As far as, so you started in 2018 based on maybe some podcast ideas. How has your journaling routine evolved over that time period? Like, from how did you start to what does it look like now?
That's a really great question, because I was thinking about that, and lately my life has radically changed,
yes.
As many's have, but mine in particular changed a lot. And my initial deal was with this theme system. I had kind of taken what this podcast had talked about and adapted it into a more focused, more like a shorter term thing where I'd take a whole year and chunk it out into different goals. And,
okay.
So I'd been like, oh, 2018 is like the year of health, and I spent it focusing on, a chunk of time journaling about my activity, and then another chunk of time journaling about my progress on my diet, and just different ways to kind of focus on goals and journaling about that. And as time has gone on, I've actually kind of changed and been more about like, I just journal about how I'm feeling and what's going on, and my ability to stick to those chunks of time has gotten harder as I've become a parent.
Right. Absolutely. I have been listening to the Time to Walk series, which is a new thing on Apple Fitness Plus. And so if you have the Apple Watch, they have these new things where you can like basically go on a walk with certain people with fame, celebrities, etc. And I listened to one recently with Malcolm Gladwell that just blew me away. And it didn't have anything to do with journaling, but it made me kind of change the way I journal. I was journaling very much just like an event log. Like, here's what happened today, here's some photos I took in the day, etc. And based on just what he talked about, I won't go into details. I think if you have the opportunity to definitely do that, it's really a neat experience because it feels like you're just walking side by side with so-and-so. Anderson Cooper, Wanda Sykes did one. Yeah, Jane Fonda is the most recent one. Absolutely. The one that got me into it was Ibram Kendi, who wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist, which was just fantastic. And walking along with him was just eye-opening for me. And so anyway, I'm listening to this one with Malcolm Gladwell, and it really didn't have much to do with journaling at all, but it really made me think about how I journal for some reason. And instead of like doing as much event logging as I have been, I really started to be more introspective. And that's something I want to do. It's to really explore the inner me, like as opposed to just like, here's what I did throughout the day. Maybe later on, when I print these Day One books, Dylan can see I've got them here on my shelf here, that some way down the line, my kids, my grandkids, or whatever, somebody else, whoever inherits them, will be able to kind of see like into the Adam Daly psyche. Sometimes that's a little scary, but it's interesting being vulnerable like that. I think the pandemic also has changed a lot of the way that I look at things and the way I journal and perspectives and how I feel and how I feel about other people, etc. So it's very interesting how at least this past year has changed for many people, and definitely kids throwing that into the mix changes a lot of things. So speaking of kids, your first email to me was about specifically shortcuts you had built to help your young children journal.
Yeah.
And they're fairly young, right? And so I'm thinking, wow, this is impressive that they're doing this in Day One, a technological thing, and you're getting them started on this. So what inspired you to do this with your kids?
Yeah, so I can't get into the whole deal, but we've only been parents for about 6 months now.
Okay.
But my kids are 5 and 6. Okay. So you can make your own conclusions about that. But we're just settling in with them and getting to know them. And, kids in their situation need some extra help and focus and building some skills that they might not have been building before they lived with us. And so we're just, figuring out nighttime routines. And one of the things they really need to focus on is, like you said, like introspection. All of us need to get better at that. But the earlier you can get better at that, the better. So, I would ask them questions like, how was your day? And they'd be like, I don't know, because they wouldn't remember very early into the day. And so I thought, if I can get them practicing this more regularly, that it would be better for themselves. It would be better for their ability to remember, and just, make them more empathic people.
Yeah.
And, just help them get better at building those skills of introspection and reflection.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because I completely agree with you. My youngest just started he started kindergarten this past year. He's been doing most of his time online until this last term. We decided as we've been starting to get vaccinated and whatnot, we decided to put him back into school, at least on a hybrid schedule. And I was nervous. He would be overwhelmed, but he clicked right in there, right? He's having a good time. He's happy when he comes out, and that just makes my heart sing. But it's interesting, like now we're a couple of weeks in and I'm like, so how was your day? And he'll be like, fine, great. And we get these one-word answers, and I'm like, well, tell me more. And so maybe, maybe that depends on me a little bit to work on my questioning, asking better open-ended questions that will elicit a more in-depth response. But then I think also, to your point, like getting them practicing, working on articulating that kind of information. Yeah, that's fantastic. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the shortcuts right now, and I just a little disclaimer as I've talked to Dylan about these. Some of them do require third-party integrations as well, so just keep that in mind. We're gonna post the links for these shortcuts that he's shared already in the app description below. But my intention is to have some sort of forum where, maybe not forum, but at least a place where we can gather some of these and users can share their shortcuts. So tell us a little bit about your shortcuts that you've built.
Yeah, so they are too young to be like proficient readers and typers. But I really wanted to get them in this practice. And so I thought, maybe, the Day One has this recording function in it, and so it can do audio clips, and it even has the transcription. But the process is more, for a technically fluent person to be able to get in there and add them manually. And then, a kid's just going to get in and push the record button, and I don't know what they're going to say, but it won't be very focused or directed. And so I thought, the templates and the daily prompts are all a great idea for an adult. How can I capture that in a format that works for a kid? And so I started messing around with shortcuts and realized I could pull in questions and randomize questions and have Siri ask them, which is great because then they can hear it and it's different all the time.
Yeah.
And then with the default functionality of shortcuts and Day One, there wasn't the ability to do them in sequence and get both the audio and the text transcription at the same time into the journal entry. So I had to come up with some creative ways to get those in. So I used a third-party tool called Toolbox Pro that can provide both the text transcription and the audio recording into the shortcut. If you were looking to do this without Toolbox Pro, you could absolutely do that, but I think the trade-off, and maybe I'm just doing it wrong, but I think the trade-off is that you can only get the text transcription or the audio recording.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
good to know.
Text was important to me because I wanted to be able to use one of Day One's great features of searching.
Oh, yeah.
So if a kid mentions, I went to the zoo, I could type in zoo and find it. You can't do that with just the audio portion.
Yep.
So that's kind of the gist of the shortcut is I built one that links to right now 3, but it's extensible. It can launch randomly any number of other shortcuts. And those other shortcuts are the flow that asks them different questions. So one day they'll get what kind of day was today and why was it like that? And they have got 4 options of good, bad, medium, or really good. And then it asks, well, what did you do? What did you learn? And what can we do to make tomorrow a good day? Or another path takes them down just completely randomized questions like, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Nice.
Or just fun stuff. I want to make sure it rotates to be fun and different, and so they're not saying the same thing to the same questions every single day.
Yeah. Do you find yourself adding new questions? Is that an ability that you can do in the shortcuts? Some flexibility there?
I haven't yet, and the reason is that their birthdays are coming up next month, and instead of doing them on my iPad, we're going to be doing them on their new iPads.
Ooh.
And so I'm going to use that transition time to change journal time.
Awesome.
And introduce new questions.
So cool. So what do they think about this?
They love it. They are disappointed if I'm out doing a different thing. I'm unable to attend journal time. They're disappointed when they have to miss journal time. So they absolutely love it.
That's awesome. See, that's something that a big change in my life and the family life is just that nighttime routine. We came up with, and this happened some time ago, but just like in evaluating our family's values and what was important to us, randomly one night I was like, all right, let's do family pledge. And everybody kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? And so we just on the spot came up with some family values that we kind of say to each other at night before we go to bed. And it, like you, and like this journaling routine, it's become like a part of their bedtime. Like we have to do family pledge before we go to bed. Like that's just how it is. And they're excited about it because they had ownership in the process, which was really great. And so I love this idea, and I'm totally going to steal it because I think it's fantastic, is adding in that journal time. Because occasionally what I've done also at bedtime or like reading stories at night, I'll throw on the audio recording on my watch and just capture their voices because I love that. I love hearing their voices and going back and on this day and hearing those little tiny voices. And then a couple years later, you're like, oh, I love it. Anyway, but this is such a cool idea, and it's going to build skills for them for a long time. Have you noticed any sort of changes or maybe skills development on their end since you started using these?
Yeah, their answers used to be, I would say, not very in depth. My daughter's name, or not my daughter's name, my daughter's answer to the question of like, how can we make tomorrow a good day, is usually always the same, and it's like, be good and listen. And which is, I guess, fine, but it doesn't explain like what does be good mean.
Yeah.
And who are we listening to? Is it yourself? Is it others? Anyway, she's gotten a little bit better about answering those questions over time, and my son has gotten a lot better at giving more in-depth questions. His answers are rarely very short, which is, I think, really good for them.
Awesome. Do you ever see yourself like printing these out in a book to have, to give them to them later?
That is absolutely my intention. We've been doing it for like 130 days or something. And it's definitely something I want to try and just be like, okay, here's at the end of 2021, we'll have all of 2021 and then a little last bit of 2020 that we can collect into a book and be like, here's your first year of journaling, and we can review it and see like, oh, this is what your answer to this kind of question was at the beginning of the year, but now that we've been a family for a year, here's what your answer to that question is now. And I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is such a cool idea. As this keeps going, do you see yourself like changing those questions as they get older? Like, how do you envision this playing out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably I'll just do like a review like every 4 months or some periodic time and review the questions and change them. And as they get older, I hope they can take more and more ownership of journal time. And because I sit next to them and help them go through it.
Yeah.
And I hope over time, as they become more independent and more fluent readers and writers, that they can say, oh, I want to make the questions, or I want to type it instead of speak it, or I want to do a video, or, I want to add pictures, or whatever they want to do, or start doing journal time outside of their bedtime routine.
Yeah.
And that's my hope, is that they start to take more and more ownership over time.
That's brilliant. Dylan, you've inspired me, my friend. This is just wonderful stuff, because I have given my oldest an account to Day One, and she's got it on her device. The kids share a device, but it's not as consistent, and I think this is going to be a great start. This is going to be something that I'm going to be looking into as well. So, do you have anything else you want to share with us?
No, I just want, I'm excited that I've inspired you. I kind of just was like, hey, maybe other people will get some use out of this. And so I've shared it here. Not even sure if it would work. 'Cause the way that you have to link stuff in is kind of, I don't know, unusual on shortcuts in iOS, but, it's worked really well for me. So I hope other people can get some use out of it too. And I'd really like to see what other people have cooking up and how they use shortcuts and what kind of their daily journal flow is. And the creative ways people are using it.
Awesome. I know not everybody loves Facebook, but the Facebook community, just for everyone listening out there, is a great resource where people do share how they journal, and I've gotten definite inspiration from others about that. One was, like you said earlier, an activity tracker. I've started to take screenshots of my workouts and put them into a journal where I like to see the map of where I went and like track my progress over time, just on a visual level, and I think that's really fun. So if you're not a member of that and you want to be, please go join it on Facebook. Links below. A great resource for other people. I've even noticed, generally we try to get people who need troubleshooting help to come to the support channels, but I noticed other people helping each other out when things come up, and maybe we're offline during that period, and people get help. So check that out, Facebook community. It's a great resource. As always, oh, sorry, Dylan, I was going to ask you one more question, because Brett used to do this all the time, and I love it. Fun fact, maybe besides shortcuts, what is one of your favorite things or features about Day One?
This is a really hard one, because there's a lot of different features I could point to. I think the one I will land on for now is the audio watch transcription functionality that you were mentioning earlier. One of the ways that I use Day One semi-regularly is I'll go for a run, and when I'm out on a run, I pretty much just have my Apple Watch and some AirPods in. And so I like to run to a nearby park and walk through the forest there, and I'll hit the record button and just kind of like gab at myself, be like, oh, here's what I'm thinking about, here's what I'm worried about, here's what's been going on. And a lot of my most personal journaling happens at those times, because running just really gets my mind going. And so that's like the best way to capture like what's really happening in my mind. And so that's probably like one of the most introspective ways that I use Day One.
I love that. That's great. And you're probably right. I'm probably too out of breath to do it while I'm exercising at this point, but maybe someday I'll get there.
You notice I said I go for a run and then I walk.
And then you walk, yeah. That's fantastic. All right. Thanks for being on the show with me today. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is really fun.
And for everybody who is interested, check out the links below. I will have the links to Dylan's shortcuts, and if those work for you, check those out, modify them, use them to what you think will be best for you and possibly your children or other relatives and friends. That's just a great idea. As always, if you do need assistance, you can reach out to the support team. You can find our contact information at dayoneapp.com/contact. Or if you need any self-service needs, we have guides, tutorials, troubleshooting at help.dayoneapp.com. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning into the show today. I'm glad to be back recording an episode. I'm going to try and keep these episodes close to some of our bigger releases, so we can talk about those kinds of things, and then getting back on track with talking to wonderful users out there who have such great ideas to inspire us to journal more. Thanks, everybody.